So, James, in the time you have here, in the 24-hour window, you did say you went and saw Creed 3.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What's going on?
Love to provide value to the podcast. Yeah, I brought myself a bucket of iced latte and sat in Creed 3. So maybe I was whipped up in such a caffeine-fueled hysteria that who knows what I think about this film. But Creed 3, Creed 1 was like a reboot of the Rocky-verse. We had Adonis Creed come back, and I really liked Creed 1. I thought it sort of brought Rocky into the modern era. I remember thinking that Sylvester Stallone was so good in that movie, and he proved what an acting force he is.
Oscar nominated.
Oh, he got Oscar nominated but didn't win, and it was really like a sort of huge breakout moment for Michael B. Jordan. And we had Creed 2, which I thought was a little bit samey and a little bit familiar, and now we have Creed 3. This time Michael B. Jordan is in the director's chair as well as returning as Adonis Creed. Sylvester Stallone not in this. There has been apparently a fallout between him and the producers and how they wanted the character to go, and I think it's become clear that they've sort of gone, thank you, but we need to move on without Rocky. And
Is Rocky referenced in this?
Not referenced at all, not in it, not referenced, not even sort of in writing, or posters or anything, which is a lot of like the history of the fights are sort of in the posts on the wall of the gym. But anyway, so this picks up quite a few years later after Creed 2. Adonis Creed is doing what is meant to be his final fight, and he's Tony Bellew. Do you watch boxing at all?
No.
So I say I probably watch 3 or 4 boxing matches a year, and I'd say 1 or 2 of those are Jake Paul. So that's just like my level of boxing. So like very minimal, but like I will watch a bit. So he's fighting Tony Bellew, who I enjoy very much, who plays like a different character. He was the guy who fought in Creed 1. He's like a professional boxer in his own right.
Okay, so he's in this again.
He's in this again, and he's
is he the one who says at the end like your dad would be proud to you?
Yeah. It's Tony Bellew. He's good fun. So he's like doing this like rematch with that character for his last ever fight. Adonis Creed is the world champion. He has achieved all of his mainstream success. He is sleeping in silk pajamas in a massive LA mansion. Nice. He is raising his daughter, and he's
got a kid now.
He's got a kid now with his wife, played by Tessa Thompson, who's also
is she
now
still got the deaf thing?
Yes, she's the deaf thing. The
Sorry
child
to
is also
phrase that
hard
so
of hearing.
poorly, but she has a
she's hard of hearing, and so is their child. And she is also like she's not performing anymore because of her hearing, so she now produces music, but it's also like going really well. And so Adonis, he set up his own gym, he has his own establishment, he's bringing up younger fighters, and he's like into that sort of promotion management side now, which is very tame, and you sort of get the sense he's trying to figure out what place he has as a man, I want to say in his mid to late 30s, like sort of not old, but very content to retire. We start with a flashback with Adonis Creed as a young teenager and a friend of his named Damon, who from some alteration in their childhood meant that Damon got sent away to prison for 18 years. And Adonis Creed is going about his business, and he goes out to his Rolls-Royce 4x4, and he sees a man folding his arms, leaning on his Rolls-Royce. He says, "What the hell are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't recognize me?" He's like, "No, get the hell off my car." And then he realizes it's Damon from his childhood. Damon is played by Jonathan Majors, who is, on his big breakout, I'm here, yeah. I feel like he is just one indie darling casting away from just like glowing and floating out into the sky.
That's how he got his big break. He got a big break in The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
That was the one,
completely different part to anything he's played since, by the way.
And he's like just had Ant-Man playing villain, and now he's sort of doing villain role here. But so basically, Damon was, as a teenager, a really hot boxing prospect, and Adonis used to basically hold his gloves and was like, coaching him. And from prison, Damon has been watching Adonis Creed's rise, and he manages to catch all his fights in prison, and he's basically seeing the life that he should have had and all the wasted potential that he's not had. And obviously he's
so
about,
far so good. I'm in.
He's like 5 to 8 years older than Adonis, and he's saying, "Listen, I want a shot to box." And he's like, "Well, you can't just get a chance at the world champions. Like, you need to. That kind of thing takes time." He's like, "I don't have time. I want to do it." And it's all this complicated politics, and you kind of know where this is heading. There's going to be some sort of conflict. It's not spoiler. You've seen the trailer. There's going to be some sort of fight. Creed 3 is, I think it's a really solid film, and I think it's a very simple, basic premise that's very well executed. What I found a little bit sort of underwhelming about it is that it really is very predictable. It is a Rocky-verse movie, so the beats of a Rocky movie that you've seen before are really familiar. So my excitement and anticipation dial is dialed down a little bit because I can kind of just see where it's going, and I know every punch it's gonna hit me with, no pun intended. And don't get me wrong, I actually think it's really well put together, and that's what really keeps it going. It really understands there are three sort of big, what I would call big box office boxing events. There's one at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. And it really knows how to take an already very cinematic event, which is a proper big boxing match, and use the cinematic backing of a big Hollywood movie to make that even more special. And every time you're going into one of those, you get really, really excited. And I think the end result is really, really good, and it tells some interesting twists to try and evolve that. And although I'm critiquing it for being a little bit predictable, I don't think the simplicity and cleanliness of films like Top Gun Maverick and Creed 3 should take away from the fact that I actually think doing that well is really hard to execute.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right? Because what it is doing, I think we've seen before, but I actually think it's done it very well. A couple of times I thought the dialogue was a little bit obvious, and it's got a little slow drip of soft cheese running throughout it.
I see, right.
But it's a Rockyverse movie, and I think there's loads to enjoy. Do I want all my films to be like that? Probably not, because I think I'd just be predicting it a bit too much. But a really solid outing, very well made, very well shot, enjoyable action. One thing about why I asked about how much boxing you've watched, because again, not a boxing expert, but the kind of punches that are being landed in these movies, which I know is typical for all the Rocky films, like one of the punches that gets landed in these fights would completely knock a man out clean. Like if you hit any of those punches that cleanly, that's it. That's usually you're on the canvas, unless you're Tyson Fury. Like that is it. But they land about 20 of those
superheroes
in the fight. It's completely ridiculous. And then thematically, there's this idea that Adonis Creed is retiring and he's been able to solve all of his conflicts by fighting. And one of the things he's trying to realize is that actually you shouldn't use physical violence and fighting to solve your personal problems. You actually need to open up and use new ways. And that's the moral of the entire film until it isn't, and you realize you actually do have to fight and physically punch someone to solve your problems.
Oh wait, this is a boxing movie.
So I was a little bit like, oh, that's a really interesting thing that we're just abandoning for the sake of, oh, it's a Creed Rockyverse movie. We have to have a really big fight in the end. That's all I'd say. You're not going to be particularly surprised. I think there's very little that this film can show you that you can't already have seen from the trailers. And I don't think that's because the trailer is over-revealing. I just think the plot doesn't deviate from the formula that much. Right. It's done very, very well in its opening weekend, and I think it's beaten Ant-Man 3. So all the best success to it. I'm sure we're going to get Creed's 4 or 5. I won't be surprised if we get Creed's 4 and 5, but that's kind of where I sat with it.
That's good. I mean, like, it sounds like your description of it is along the same lines of what I said about All Quiet on the Western Front, which is like, well, this is a war film and it's got the same beats as a war film. And you're having that with like, this is a boxing film. So I'm seeing everything I'd expect from a boxing film is here, including nothing new. But I agree, it's still very hard to pull off those kind of films. As long as it knows that it is a boxing film, and yes, it has to serve the kind of like genre,
you break
territory.
your hero down, stuff like
montage.
Oh god, the montage, and it's great. It's it's a worthy Rocky movie.
Jonathan Majors,
fantastic.
Great.
He is. I think I preferred him in this than I did I thought he was really good in Ant-Man, but in this he's got a really magnetic screen presence. It really draws you in. He doesn't overproject, so it forces you to really listen to what he's saying. And that in the first few scenes when him and Donnie just go to a diner after he first sees him, and you could really tell he's adopting the physicality of someone who's been incarcerated for 18 years, and he hunches his shoulders and he hangs his head. Someone who's like really not. I don't know how you describe it. Someone who's been incarcerated for that long, but then once he sort of rediscovers his confidence as a boxer, that all completely changes. Oh my God, shout out to the muscles in this movie. If that's a reason to see it, whoa.
No vegetarians are listening because this is full of meat.
I mean, Michael B. Jordan, as always, in terrific, phenomenal shape, especially in the Creed films. But Jonathan Majors.
I know, it does seem a little obscene. It's a bit obscene, isn't it?
It's like...
How much water did he not have to drink to get that?
Yeah, because they dehydrate themselves. I've got no idea.
Kids,
he is in such good shape.
Don't
compare yourself.
Don't compare yourself to these guys. They're basically playing superheroes,
and they're getting paid millions and millions. If you got paid millions and millions of dollars for 6 months to do nothing but learn your lines and work out, you could probably get pretty close.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't enjoy it though. I would be honking for some pizza.
But just in Creed 1. I don't know how well you remember the film, but we get to the end of the fight and Sylvester Stallone, Rocky's been battling with cancer and he's fighting that and Creed is fighting his own demons. And I guess at the very end, Creed's been almost knocked out to the floor and he's giving him this like final talk at the end of the 11th round. And he says this, he's like, I can't fail because I need to show that I'm not a failure. And he says something like, you're not a failure. You're doing thing that your father can never do, and you're gonna win because I love you, kid. And we're gonna fight this together, and you're gonna fight right now. And it had that moment where I was like, oh my god, like they've both been fighting. And then the Rocky music comes in. I never got that like elevated. Here's why this story is really gonna pluck at your heartstrings. It just did feel.
They couldn't use any Rocky music in this, did they? I guess not. Did they use the Rocky theme? Is there maybe they're just trying to break free from the Rocky verse?
It was like a very similar but altered version. Now you mention it, you might be right, but don't hold me to that.
Can I just ask, where are you with the Rocky films? I don't think I've seen a single Rocky film.
I've seen
Creed. Creed is the only Rocky film I've seen.
I've seen bits of Rocky 3. Which is
interesting.
Drago.
No, that is Rocky 4. Rocky 3 is Mr. T.
Okay, so not seen that. So I've seen bits of Rocky 4 and Rocky Balboa.
Is that Creed 2 is like a sequel to Rocky 4, right?
Yes, because that's the one with Ivan Drago's kid. And it's like, oh, your son's fighting? Well, my son.
And I killed your dad. Yeah.
Oh, a sequel. So not huge. I have like seen many of the scenes on YouTube and I know about like the fights, but no, I can't say I'm like well learned in the Rocky verse. I mean, what is this? Is the 8th or 9th Rocky verse?
Hang on a minute. We've had
Rocky.
Wait. Rocky 2, 3, 4. Rocky 5. Rocky Balboa. It was just called Rocky Balboa, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then there was Creed.
Creed 2. That's 8.
Creed 3. This is the 9th. Yeah, crikey.
So they're like coming up on Star Wars numbers for the number of films.
Interesting.
Okay, but that's it. Creed 3.
If you've seen Creed,
but yeah, that's how I felt about Creed 3.
If you've seen Creed 3 and also Cocaine Bear, let us know your thoughts about those two films. Email them in and see if you disagree or agree with us.